The shadows don't ask for permission to enter a room. They simply exist, and in that existence, they redefine the light. You're here because you've noticed that some women don't need to scream to be heard, while others exhaust themselves performing for a crowd that forgets them the moment they step off stage. We are talking about the Sigma female, the woman who has realized that the social hierarchy is a cage built by those too afraid to stand alone. She doesn't demand respect. She commands it through a frequency that most people aren't tuned into until she's already walked away. This isn't about being better in a competitive sense. It's about being untouchable in a psychological sense. Let's peel back the layers of this silence. Point 1. The sovereignty of the selective no. Most women are socialized to be nice, a word that has become synonymous with available. The world expects you to be a soft landing spot for everyone else's chaos, but the Sigma woman views her energy as a finite, sacred resource. When she says no, it isn't a negotiation. It isn't a defensive reaction rooted in anger or a frantic attempt to justify her schedule. It is a cold, neutral boundary. People are accustomed to leaky boundaries, the kind where a no can be turned into a maybe, with enough social pressure or guilt tripping. When the Sigma woman speaks her refusal, there is a finality to it that signals she cannot be manipulated. This creates an immediate vacuum of respect. Humans are biologically programmed to value things that are scarce and difficult to influence. By refusing to be a people pleaser, she signals that her time and her presence have a high entry cost. She isn't being rude. She is being sovereign. She understands that every time you say yes to something you hate, you are effectively telling the world that your own desires are secondary to their convenience. She refuses that contract. This cold clarity forces people to treat her with a level of caution and reverence they reserve for power. They realize that to get a yes from her, they must bring something of actual value to the table. She doesn't offer herself up as a sacrifice for the sake of social harmony, and in that refusal, she becomes the person everyone seeks to impress. Point 2. The internal compass and the death of validation. We live in a digital panopticon where every move is recorded, rated, and validated by the masses. The average person is a walking collection of borrowed opinions, wearing trends they don't like, and chasing careers they don't want, all to satisfy an invisible audience. The Sigma woman is the glitch in this system because she has deleted the audience. She operates from an internal compass that is shielded from the noise of the collective. When she walks into a room, she isn't scanning faces to see if she's being approved of. She's scanning the room to see if it's worth her time. This reversal of the gaze is incredibly disarming. Most people are reactive. They adjust their posture, their tone, and their jokes based on the feedback they get. The Sigma is proactive. She is who she is regardless of whether there are 2 people or 2,000 people watching. This lack of performative identity is interpreted by the subconscious of others as a sign of extreme high status. Only someone who truly possesses themselves can afford to ignore the crowd. She doesn't need your likes to know she's successful, and she doesn't need your criticism to know she's failed. This creates a mysterious aura around her because she cannot be bought with flattery or broken with social exclusion. She is her own source of light, and people naturally gravitate toward that kind of self-contained power, even if they find it intimidating. Point 3. The strategic use of the void. In a society that fears silence, the Sigma woman embraces it as her primary language. Most people use words as a shield to hide their insecurities, filling the air with meaningless chatter to avoid the discomfort of being truly seen. The Sigma woman uses silence as a mirror. When she is in a conversation, she doesn't rush to fill the gaps. She listens with a cold, analytical intensity that makes the other person feel like they are being read because they are. This mastery of the pause is one of her most potent tools for gaining respect. When you speak less, your words gain weight. They become like heavy stones dropped into a still pond, rather than a handful of sand thrown into the wind. When she does choose to speak, her observations are usually surgical, cutting through the fluff and getting to the core of the matter. This economy of language suggests a disciplined mind. It suggests that she is not easily rattled, and that she isn't looking for a win in a debate. She is simply stating a truth. People respect those who can sit in silence without fidgeting, without checking their phones, and without feeling the need to entertain. It displays a level of neurological control that most people simply do not possess. Her silence isn't an absence. It is a presence so dense that it demands the room's attention. Point 4. The power of the walk away. The ultimate leverage in any human interaction is the genuine ability to leave. Most people are tethered to their social circles, their jobs, or their relationships by a deep-seated fear of being alone. They will tolerate disrespect, microaggressions, and toxicity just to avoid the void of solitude. The Sigma woman, however, has already befriended the void. She is optionally social, meaning she enters society by choice, not by necessity. Because she is perfectly content in her own company, she possesses the ultimate veto. If a situation becomes beneath her, if the respect in the room evaporates, or if the energy becomes stagnant, she simply exits. There is no drama, no long drawn-out argument, and no grand finale. She just vanishes. This ability to walk away without looking back is terrifying to people who rely on social leverage to control others. You cannot control a woman who doesn't need you. Her independence isn't a pose. It's a lifestyle. This makes her the most respected person in any group because everyone knows, subconsciously, that she is there because she wants to be, not because she has nowhere else to go. Her presence is a gift she can withdraw at any second, which forces people to treat her with a level of care they don't afford to those they know are stuck. Point 5. The mystery of the quiet empire. While the world is busy announcing their goals and posting photos of their hustle, the Sigma woman is working in the shadows. She understands that the moment you tell someone your plans, you give them a piece of your power. You allow them to project their fears, their jealousy, and their limitations onto your vision. She prefers the quiet empire approach. She builds her skills, her wealth, and her knowledge in private, far away from the prying eyes of social media or office gossip. This creates a massive gap between what people think they know about her and what is actually true. When she finally reveals a result, a new venture, a mastery of a language, a physical transformation, it seems to happen effortlessly to the outside observer. In reality, it was the result of thousands of hours of unseen discipline. This lack of performative success is deeply respected because it is authentic. It shows she doesn't need the attaboy or the dopamine hit of a like to stay motivated. She is driven by an internal fire that doesn't need outside oxygen. People respect the result more when they didn't have to watch the messy process. Her mystery becomes her armor. Point 6. The pillar of emotional stoicism. Let's be clear. Stoicism isn't about being a robot. It's about being the eye of the storm. Most people are highly reactive. If someone insults them, they get angry. If things go wrong, they panic. They are like boats without anchors, tossed around by every wave of circumstance. The Sigma woman is anchored deep. When a crisis occurs, she is usually the calmest person in the room. This isn't because she doesn't feel, but because she understands that an emotional reaction rarely solves a tactical problem. She processes her emotions in private with a cold intellectual honesty. In public, she remains a pillar. This stability is magnetic. In times of chaos, people don't look to the person who is screaming for justice or the person who is crying in the corner. They look to the woman who is calmly assessing the exits. Her lack of drama isn't a sign of coldness, but a sign of high-level competence. She doesn't participate in the emotional labor of keeping everyone else comfortable, and she doesn't expect them to do it for her. This self-regulation is a rare trait in a world of oversharers, and it earns her a level of respect that borders on awe. Point 7. The refusal to compete. The most profound reason a Sigma woman gains respect is that she has stepped off the game board entirely. Alpha females often find themselves in a constant cycle of defending their throne, looking for threats and asserting dominance. Beta females often find themselves trying to fit in or climb the ladder through social maneuvering. The Sigma woman looks at the ladder and decides she'd rather fly. She doesn't compete with other women because she doesn't see them as competitors. She sees them as individuals on their own separate journeys. When you stop competing, you stop being a threat. And when you stop being a threat, people's defenses drop. They realize they don't have to beat you because you aren't playing the game. This gives her a unique kind of social power. She can be friends with the top and the bottom without any of the usual jealousy or friction. She is focused purely on her own evolution. This focus on self-mastery rather than other dominance is the highest form of power. People respect her because she is the only person in the room who isn't trying to prove she's better than them. She already knows who she is. She is the shadow that doesn't need the sun to define its shape. She is the Sigma. You don't have to follow her, but you will never forget she was there. Stay cold. Stay focused. Stay in your own power.